Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get started. My name is Steve Steiny, broadcasting you from live from the University of Iowa campus here in Iowa City, Iowa. I want to welcome you all to the part four of our winter living series. Today, the title is Celebration of Life, Building Relationships with Everything Around Us. This is our February broadcast of 2021, and we have most of our panelists with us today on the call. Sean Baer, Ray Daw, um, Kiawe Bone, Shirley Holmberg, Teresa Sue Brill, and Jim Weichel. Our hope in the beginning, as we put this Winter Living series together, in talking with our consultants and our group, our panelist group, our hope was really to offer a safe and supportive venue to help guide each other through the increasing difficulties associated with rising infection rates, illnesses, and deaths related to COVID-19. Um, and we anticipate that these will continue certainly over the next 2 to 4 months. Um, as Ray shared with me, this is a stark and troubling time indeed, but we will persevere. Uh, the light will greet us in the springtime, followed by better days to come. Just want to remind everyone, too, that this training series is brought to you by the National American Indian Alaska Native HTC. We are part of the HTC network, which includes 10 regional centers, a network coordinating office, and the National Hispanic Latino HTC. This project is supported by SAMHSA. However, the content is developed by the presenters, and the opinions expressed today do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of SAMHSA, HHS, or the American Indian Alaska Native ATTC. And I know before we get started, we again just want to acknowledge the ongoing and current political climate and some of the stressors related to that, as well as to the pandemic. And we know that it's a stressful time for many, and we know that there may be those on the call today with differing opinions. We just want to remind everyone that, as always, we want to be respectful of each other. During today's webinar, you will be provided with a link to a short survey. This just takes a few minutes to fill out, and it allows us to get feedback from you, which is critical to our work. We really value your opinion and greatly appreciate your time in giving us your thoughts. We will also reach out to you via email post-event for another opportunity to complete this survey. I assure you that all the data gathered is confidential and you will not be identified in any way. And as most of you know now, we are all Zoom veterans. Most of us on the call now are very accustomed to this, but you are currently muted. I would just ask that you remain muted to reduce background noise. Use the chat feature to share your questions and comments, and we will try and address those throughout the course of the discussion today. We're going to save the chat as well, so just be mindful of this as you share thoughts and ideas. And certainly use the hand raise feature. Our panelists will encourage you to make comments if you feel comfortable sharing. Just unmute yourself and feel free to share during the course of today's discussion. So we are, all of us, I can speak for the group, we're really pleased to have you all here with us today. There's just some contact information. Our co-director, Sean Baer, can be reached at this email. Ray Daw, one of our senior consultants and advisory council members, can be reached at this email. And of course, I've added my email there as well if you have other questions about today's event. So with that, I want to conclude my introduction and turn the floor over to our lead presenter today, Mr. Jim Weichel. Jim, it's an honor to have you here with us and to be part of this this project and broadcast today. So the floor is yours, Jim.
Okay, Yahweh, Steve. First of all, let me introduce myself in my language, in our traditional way. Yahweh Skeno Swagwego, Hano Nogoha Isni Gyazo, Otioni Niwagashaute, Onantawaga Gagahono Ni Ganawiage Niwaquinsate. So I greeted you all. I said hello. I'm grateful you're all here. I said my name in Cayuga, which means his mind is changing. My clan, which is Wolf, from my mother's side, we are matrilineal people. And my nation, which is the Seneca Cayuga Nation of Oklahoma. Currently, I am residing in Vancouver, Washington. So I'm kind of an expat, I guess you'd say. But I just want to, first of all, say I'm really honored to be asked to be able to do this. And a few disclaimers. I am in no way, shape, or form a teacher. I do not consider myself a teacher. I'm a learner more than anything. And I just, I think one of my greatest joys, though, is to share what I've learned. And in that process, I get to learn more as well. So that being said, I have never on a Zoom platform been anything other than a participant in these deals. So I do have some things I want to share. I'd like to start with an opening blessing, I guess you'd say. We call it Ganohanyok. And I'm going to see if I can put that on the screen. Let's see, here we go. Is everybody able to see that? So basically what this is, we call it the Ganohanyok. This is in the Cayuga language. It is literally means the words that are said before everything else. It is commonly known as a Thanksgiving address or Thanksgiving speech. And this is a real short version. And I'm just sharing it. So I've talked about this before, sharing it so people can maybe get an idea of where we're going with this. This is a short version. Now, the long version can go on for a couple hours. And for one, I am not fluent enough to go on with this for a couple of hours. And if you're like me, we say it before every gathering, whether it be ceremonial or social. If we get together like for a social dance and eat, the speaker will say this. And like I said, he could go on for a long time, and pretty soon people are saying, man, when's he going to be done? I want to eat. So I won't go on with it for that long. But it's really, this title of this presentation, I believe, is, building a relation to all things, and so this speech really lines out how we view everything as a relation, and we celebrate our relation to it, and we celebrate the life that it gives us. So I'm just going to say it, and kind of build off of it for today. So I say Swaguego, Swati Hosios, Niha Waka. Everyone listen for a little while. Angkwe, so the people, we greet each other. Anytime you hear the prefix Angkwe, that means the people. So first we give thanks to our mother, the earth. We give thanks to the weeds and the medicines. Now, in the long version, we would start breaking down the plants and thanking them one by one. We give thanks to the hanging fruits like the apples and the pears and peaches. And in a longer version, we would also give thanks to the strawberry, which is strawberry is the first fruit to get ripe in the springtime, and it's one of our first medicines. So we give thanks to the trees. Once again, the speaker would break down the different trees and start with the maple, which is kind of the leader of the trees, because about this time of the year, the maple is giving us the sap that we make the syrup and the sugar from. And that is giving thanks to the animals. And the animals, once again, would be, broken down, customarily, the deer is viewed as the leader of the animals. But thanks would also be given to the birds and the fish that swim and the things that crawl. So now we give thanks to the waters, which is our first medicine. We give thanks to our sustenance, and our sustenance is referred to as the three sisters of the corn, the beans, and the squash. And once again, I'm starting to see, how this is so relational that we would call something that in most societies is something that you go to the store and buy, but we call that our relatives, our three sisters. And actually, I'll go a little deeper into that later. We call those our three little sisters. So now we give thanks to the stirring winds, and the winds are important because they bring around the changing of the seasons, and they bring around when it's in the springtime, when the pollen is in the air, they blow the pollen around to perpetuate life and cause my allergies. And I'll go into a little story about that too. And so now we're giving thanks to our grandfathers, the thunders, or the thunder beings, as some people call them. And the thunders in our creation story, we have ancestral oral history of dinosaurs. And in our creation legend, the thunders are the ones that keep the dinosaurs under the ground now. And we also give thanks to the thunders because when the thunders come, it means the rains come. This one in the Honyone Sadweja Adika Gagwagis, and that's our older brother, the sun. Diatinya Honyone Atiso Asoheka Anita Geese. That's our grandmother, the moon. And we have a special relationship to the moon. Before the Gregorian calendar was given to us, I'll use a polite term, we have a 13-month lunar calendar. And it was actually much more accurate. We didn't have to add a leap year or extra days. And special times were given during that time to our women. So we have a ceremony called the Blackberry which is the full moon in July, and it's a women's ceremony. It's a nighttime women's ceremony. Now we'll give thanks to the stars, who are our most distant relatives. I'm going to talk some about star knowledge. That's when that's who a lot of Haudenosaunee people follow Handsome Lake. And so we include Handsome Lake in this speech because Handsome Lake probably originated the first sobriety program for Native people. And he got a lot of our people off of the path of alcohol back into the longhouse. So we give thanks to him. Those are our four heavenly beings, what some people think of as guardian angels. We didn't have any kind of term for guardian angels before the contact of missionaries. We looked at these as the ones who basically hold up the four corners of the universe, or the four corners of creation. Now we give thanks to him, our creator. And once again, the hymn in reference to creator was not used before the influence of missionaries. And this is my favorite part. Dontato nagatwini igi igaya dagak ganohan yok Dontato. I like that part because in the long version, the speaker would say, that's the best I could do. That's all I could think of. And I like that because I like to think that's all that's asked of me, or anybody actually, as we go through our days, is just to do the best we can do and do better tomorrow. And Dontato, anytime you hear that, it's Dontato actually, means that is all. So Dontato. All right. So, all right, I'm going to stop that share. And let me go to another one. And once again, this is something I just threw up because I need some notes. If I can figure out how to scroll it. Bear with me a minute. There we go. So, our indigenous languages are they are relational. And I'm going to include a few quotes from Vine Deloria Jr., who was probably one of the, if not the foremost, one of the foremost Native scholars. He has a lot of writings, a lot of books. And one of the things that he said is that the primary difference between the Western and indigenous ways of life is that Indians experience and relate to a living universe, whereas Western people or Western society reduces all things, living or not, to objects. In the Western point of view, everything becomes reduced to, it's commodified. It has to have a value placed on it in terms of dollars. And whereas with indigenous ways of viewing things, you know, we experience that living relation to the creation. And one of the things that fascinates me, and also I want to say, anytime, feel free, any panelists, to jump in. You know, it's how I learn. But science, you know, is continually discovering what indigenous people have inherently known for thousands of years, for eons. You know, we've always experienced and known that we are related to all those things in creation, and even our language are expressions of that knowledge. I read this article not long ago, and it's about this Australian indigenous elder, and she talks about how even the name of her tribe, you know, it can be broken up to mean, a sound and water and deep. So the deep water sounds or sounds of the deep. And so this is about tapping into that deep spring within us. Uh, Over the past year or so, there's been a lot of talk about historical trauma during the pandemic, and um, but more and more, I am hearing the term historical resilience and tapping into that pool that's within us. Um, these times that we live in are, you know, difficult times. They're kind of dark sometimes, but remember, I like to remember that we're made for these times. We've lived through these times before by tapping into that spring of resilience and knowledge, um, and gratitude that is within us, and so, that entails not not just knowing the words, but knowing who we are, um, and knowing that we're related to all things. I remember when I was given my name, um, I was 56 years old on the day during that time. And it was during the naming ceremony of our green corn ceremony. And the first day is always naming day. And I was the oldest baby in there. And as I said, I was 56 years old. I was well into my recovery. I'm, a recovered alcoholic, and I've experienced some other co-occurring comorbidities that go along with alcoholism. And I'd done a lot of work in my recovery, but I was still sort of kind of stumbling around to find out who I was. And when I was given that name, and then, they say, so know that name, know what it means, say it a lot, and then learn what other people's names are and start using them. And when I was given that name, I felt like I really had become or came to a point where I was beginning to know who I was. We call ourselves Angkwe Hallway, and that means the original beings. And so I come to know myself as that. So that is what I mean by that resilience. And I think that learning that and learning what I'm still learning has been one of the things more than anything that's gotten me through this last almost year. This man, Don C., who was one of the founders of the Wellbriety movement, said that culture is the therapy and the community is the therapist. So being connected in both of that has been really a thing that's gotten me through this more than anything else. So I want to go a little bit into the maple trees. And, traditionally around this time of year, the Haudenosaunee people and others, northern peoples, like the Ojibwe and the Cree and what have you, tap the sugar maples. And these are important, the syrup and the sugar are important food staples and medicines. And actually, sugar or maple sap has a antioxidant property. So it's really one of our first medicines of the year. And it's restorative after the long winter. And I was thinking a while back that, I spent a long time complaining about the winter. You know, it's cold, have to stay inside. The days are short, it's dark. And, but then I have this shift in perspective that rather than complain, I should be grateful for all of these seasons because, you know, the natural way to live is in tune with that natural cycle. And several years back, I was working at a community mental health center in Northeast Oklahoma. And one day my supervisor told me that I was going to have to start working some Saturdays. And I said, I can't. And she said, why? And I said, because we normally have our big ceremony on Saturday. And she said, well, just let us know and we'll work with you. Which, you know, that's, you know, I thought she's a good person and was trying to accommodate me. But I explained to her that I couldn't let her know when the exact dates are because we don't go by the calendar that's on the wall. And she said, well, which one do you go by? And I pointed out the window and I said, that one. And I was referring to it was about time for our, what we call welcoming of the sun in the spring. And how we know when it's time to do that is if the faith keepers will go out and start looking at the buds on the dogwood tree. And they say when it gets as big as a squirrel's ear, then it's time for welcoming the sun. And so when they see that, an announcement will go out, and the following weekend is when the ceremony is. And I explained to her that. I said, so I can't let you know the exact date, but this is really important to me that I be able to participate. She says, well, we really need somebody. And I don't know, I ended up working something out with a non-native coworker who would work on those days for me. And if he had to work on days that were of him, you know, religious significance to him, I would cover for him. So we worked it out, but trying to explain that way of life where we don't put our life into little squares on a piece of paper hanging on a wall. We live our life according to how the seasons change and how the trees bud and how the crops grow and how the stars are in the sky. And because we're related to those, you know, and so to be in tune with that ceremonial calendar and that lunar calendar, for me and to the language and to the earth is what connects us to ourselves as Angkwe Hallway people. And when we say Angkwe Hallway, we just don't mean Haudenosaunee. We mean all the original peoples, Turtle Island. So, in my experience, just tapping into this pool of ancestral knowledge, and I think it was John Trudell who said that, you know, we struggle to learn the old ways when all we need to do is remember them, because we already have that knowledge. Before I moved away, we were participating in language class, and it was so cool to like have this aha kind of moment when you realize that you know a word that you've never heard. If that's the best way I can put it. And some of you may know what I'm talking about. So it's tapping into that pool of ancestral knowledge is one of the keys to healing from historical and intergenerational trauma. And then building or reestablishing relationships to not only other people, but to everything else in the natural world is part of that healing process as well. And some of you may be familiar with Johan Hari. And he is the one that, after doing some social experiments with rats, I think, came to the conclusion that sobriety isn't the answer to addiction. Connection is the answer to addiction. And the great agrarian philosopher, poet, Wendell Berry pretty much said the same thing. So it's in my experience that once I realized that connection, the need to use drugs or alcohol has been eliminated. And that doesn't mean that I'm a marvel of mental health on any given day, but if I can maintain that connection, and these have been challenging times to maintain that connection for all of us, I think. But at the same time, I'm really grateful for technology and Zoom. I talk a lot about decolonization, but that means clearing my mind of these values that have been imposed on us by society, rather than not being open to technology that can help us. Like, for example, all this connection. It's really, I see my former coworker and friend Lisa is on the call. So, if I hadn't been for Zoom, I mean, this has just been such a who could have foresaw last year at this time where we would be this year, you know? Uh, but so But for me, learning the language and participating in cultural and ceremonial activities have been that connection. And due to the circumstances, we have not been able to have ceremony or gatherings. Um, uh, and so that's been a challenge as well. But that's where putting to use what I've learned and being able to, as the end of our Thanksgiving speech says, do the best I can do with what I know, has been very helpful. Um, and I talked about something that Trudell says, but we have the resilience built into our genetic memories, and I might add that only since the influence of the missionaries have our longhouse gatherings been called ceremonies or religious services. Whether they are celebrations of Thanksgiving and connection, or a celebration of life, as you will. And, some people will experience that in a religious sense. So I'm in no way, shape, or form saying I'm opposed to religion. It's just that our worldview, we had no word for religion. Our word that we used for ourselves, Angkwe Hallway, we say Angkwe Hallway Neha, which basically means it's a way of being. It's our way of being. It also means we're all connected. And as I just said, I think all indigenous people have that sense of connection to all things. Like I said, we say Angkwe Hallway Neha. One of our storytellers, Mohawk, explains that means that all life, water, plants, vegetables, trees, animals, rocks, winds, sun, everything is all part of life that Creator made. And in our Ganohanyok, the speaker acknowledges this reality. For us, it's a reality. It's something, that we experience as real. And I as I went through it, you'll notice the order that at first the speaker asks the people to listen for a while so we can be of what we call one mind, Nagatwin, Nagoha, one mind. And then he acknowledges the people and gives thanks to the earth, and then the plants, medicines, all the fruits, the trees, animals, waters, winds. And it always said in that order, the people, the earth, the things of the creation that provide us life, and the creator in that order. And that is a little different than the Western view, where the creator, which is usually a male patriarchal authoritarian deity, is at the top of the heap, where in our ways, we start with the earth and the people, and the creator is kind of way down the list. I don't think he minds too much, but and as I said, he can go on for a long time, and it becomes kind of a stream of consciousness thing sometimes for the speaker, because he'll give us thanks whatever comes to his mind. I remember one time at our strawberry, which is a springtime ceremony, Paul, who was the speaker, gave thanks to the pollen, which is that was in the air. And it was, I mean, everything was green with pollen on your car, everything. And um, I didn't realize that he was verbalizing his consciousness of the connection between the pollen and the winds and the perpetuation of life. And when to me, pollen was just this annoying substance that caused me misery every spring. And I asked him about it. Why did you give thanks to the pollen? And that's what he said, because it's in the air and the winds are carrying it around and it lands someplace and a seed will grow. I had never made that connection. Like I said, to me, it was just something that caused my allergies to flare up and made me feel sick. I wonder if our people experienced allergies in those days um, before we knew about such a thing. Um, and so I've talked about how the Ganok is not just a speech of Thanksgiving, but of relation. And, you know, we address and we give thanks to the guy in Heiko, or we call them the life sustainers of the corn, the beans, and the squash. And actually, these are our little sisters. And the reason we call them our little sisters is because they require us to help to cultivate them and help them grow. Whereas the wild plants and the medicines, the wild foods and the medicines, they don't require our help. And I might say, well, nowadays, maybe they might when it comes to preserving habitat and what have you. Sometimes, you know, I was reading about the Line 3 thing and all the efforts that's been made to keep the wild rice beds intact. So maybe nowadays they really do need us to help them and fight for them. And so, you know, when we address the thunders, we call them our grandfathers, and the sun is our older brother, the moon is our grandmother, and the stars are our most distant relatives. And one thing that really fascinates me, and I've been reading a lot about, is indigenous star knowledge. And that not only did indigenous peoples have stories about originating from the stars, I just read an article about how Polynesian peoples made contact with native people in the far south of what's now South America, and these Polynesian people would navigate vast distances across open ocean using just the stars and knowledge of the winds and the currents. And similar stories I've heard about the plains people in North America that would navigate across the plains using the stars. So we call those stars our most distant relatives, and science is continually discovering and acknowledging what we've always known. You know, in our creation story, we come from a hole in the sky world in the Pleiades star cluster. Many indigenous nations have stories about the Pleiades, the seven sisters, the seven dancers, some are called. The Lakota talk about the Star Nation. These are all expressions of star knowledge. And of course, we've always known that we're composed of star stuff, or we're composed of the same minerals, liquids, and elements of the earth, which is star stuff. Astrophysicists talk about the same thing. When we say Angkwe Hallway Naha or Matakue Oasin, that's what we mean. And other cultures have expressed that too. I think it was, there's a Serbian proverb that says, be noble because you're made of stars, and be humble because you're made of earth. And, Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Buddhist teacher, called it inner being. So many other cultures and people have been aware of this. And it's just, now being acknowledged as by scientists. And I'm going to wrap it up pretty soon and just kind of open it up. But I just want to acknowledge one last thing, that how we relate to the natural world, at least to a lot of us, and I'm not saying it's true for everybody, is not really some mystical kind of thing, but a realization of an acknowledgement of that which is before us, or that which is true. I have heard, and this is just what I've heard from some people. We have a word called Gaiweo. And before Handsome Lake, that word actually meant that which is true. And speaking of, I can't wrap my mind around the immensity of, say, the night sky. Or just a couple of weeks ago, I was out and about, and I came up over a hill, and the mountains came into view. It was a clear day. The mountains had snow on them. It just kind of stopped me for a second. And so I can't wrap my mind around that, or what, Lakota call it Wakantanka, but I can't deny the reality of what was before me. And, the reality of a blue sky, or the mountains, or the stars. And so our worldview, which includes our stories, is really not an attempt to explain the unexplainable, but it's about acknowledging what is before us. There are mysteries that I certainly cannot wrap my head around. And I think that all, paths, traditions, what have you, are an attempt to explain that. And some do a better job than others, I think. But our worldview is not really an attempt to do that. We have our stories and our legends, but like nowadays we call our ceremonial people faith keepers. We had no idea of we didn't have systems of faith before the influence of missionaries. We had systems of knowledge, and we called our faith keepers knowledge keepers. And so for me, that knowledge, and this is the beauty, is there's no limit to that. There's no limit to what can be learned and known and experienced. So with that, I'm going to be quiet, and maybe I'll stop the screen sharing and let, I'm sure some of our other panelists have stories to add or knowledge to add, and then there'll be some questions as well. Yawagoa.
Thank you, Jim. There were a couple of comments in the chat requesting whether you would be willing or able to share some of the prayer writings that you started with. A couple of people had asked for requested that.
Yes, I'll put my email address in the chat. Some people already have it, but I'll put my email address in.
Hi, this is Shirley. Good morning. When I went to drop my son off this morning, it was minus 24 here in Fairbanks, Alaska. Thank God we get to warm up the vehicle before we go. Thank God for a truck. Anabasi, Jim, for sharing your knowledge. I appreciate listening to you guys all the time. Like I always say, it's a rare occasion we get to hear our men speak. when you talk or when we talk, it seems like I get triggered about different parts of my life and knowledge that I acquired traveling or just in my own culture. And this thought about building relationships with those around us. I'm not perfect. I don't do everything just perfect. I don't, I'm very respectful most of the time. When I'm around people that are experiencing something other than love, I tend to sometimes buy into it and either become a part of it or step away from it. And when we were planning this talk here, I spoke about how we're feeling, how we're thinking, how we're reacting or not or acting affects everyone around us, even our thought processes. I talked about going to a conference in New Orleans. It was an education conference. I work with young people in treatment and went to this conference, and there was this, I can't think of his name right now, but he was like a buzzword person. He was, going to all the adult children of alcoholics conferences back during that time. But he talked about how we affect each other just by our thoughts. And he had asked for a volunteer to come up, and we were in a large room, and he was doing his workshop, and he wanted to demonstrate how our thoughts affect each other. And he asked for a volunteer, and a volunteer raised his hand. I just call him Bob. I don't remember what his real name was, but I call him Bob. So Bob came up and he stood up there, and the presenter had him stand straight up and then put his arm out, straight out. And the presenter asked us all, there must have been, 60 people in there, asked us all to think a bad thought toward Bob. So I can't really think bad thoughts toward people. So anyway, people were thinking bad thoughts toward Bob, people that could. And so Bob's standing there, and the presenter put his hands on his wrists and tried to push his hand down. And he was able to push it down, but he told Bob to resist, and he was able to push it down. And then the presenter said, okay, now everybody think a good thought toward Bob. So Bob's standing there with his arm out again. And I could think of good thoughts. I was thinking, he's a good dresser, he's a nice looking person. And we're all thinking these thoughts, and it didn't take very long to think a thought. And then the presenter tried to push his arm down and couldn't. So it kind of proved to everyone that what we think toward each other matters, that we affect each other. And then, in the way that I believe we're hooked up by spirit. All of us are hooked up by spirit. In our language, there's a really hard word. I mean, not hard word, it's a long word. If you look at it, it looks confusing. And we've only had our language written since not too long ago. One is Adagoyani dalidanik, and that means take good care of yourself. And the other word, it's kind of like it's like adahoyani dalidanik. That means watch what you say, because you can never take it back, because your words affect people. And I was having to remember that the other day, because I try to love people. I do my best to send that love out there. I'm always giving that love away. And sometimes I start buying into how other people are, and I don't feel that. And the other day I had to rein myself back in to think about that love, because I love everyone. I have to love everyone to be able to do what I do. In our stories from when we're little, well, first, when we come out of the womb, we're given a name that's a good name, because every time somebody says your name, it's going to affect you. Everyone, anytime anybody thinks your name, it's going to affect you. So my daughter's on this webinar. Her name is Sia, and her name means mine alone in our language. And there's a whole story behind that. So every time you say her name, you're saying mine alone, mine alone. And she's named after a man that everybody loved. Everybody loved this man. So she was named after him. So when you're a small child, you get a good name. And I've said this before, you're not given a name like Little Dummy or, whatever else people can think about. You're given a good name so that it will bring you luck. It will bring you, it will make you have a good life. When you're given a name, you become like the name that you're given, right? When you're a small child, you're taught stories. Maybe my generation, my mother's generation, the beginning of her young life, 1925 is when she was born, my late mother. They were still telling the stories at night, no electricity. They used bear fat for light if they were going to have light. And sometimes there was not enough bear fat to have light. But in the darkness, an elder would tell a story to the children, and everybody would listen. And in the story, it would be some little moral or value that our people follow, like a code of conduct. And you were told several stories, only in the winter. And when the storyteller was done telling you a story, then you had to tell it back to the storyteller. And if it was a hard story, you would hear it the next night and maybe the next night, and then tell it back. So in these stories, it taught you how to be, I always say, a good little human being. A good little human being. And you lived those stories. Whatever you learned in the story, that's what your belief became, and you live that story. Traditional code, it's kind of like a standard of conduct for our people. And you learn it when you're a child. When you become a young person, like in our way, when you become like puberty, women start their menstruation, boys, they get that deep voice. I have that deep voice too. Now, that is when boys get a deep voice, that's when they start going through their manhood training. when girls get their menstruation, they go through womanhood training. So you learn a whole nother set of how to be a good human being and how to be a good woman or a good man, right? Um, and when you learn those stories, that's all there was back then, right? That's all there was. That was your teaching. You didn't have the internet. You didn't have anything that you see today was not there. When I was 15 years old, I lived in a fish camp with my best friend and her parents, and we had no electricity at all. No electricity. That was in 1967. And all there was for heat was, of course, a wood stove. And in the fish camp, it was very traditional. The beliefs were very traditional. The elders there that lived there were very traditional. The male and female code of conduct was followed there. My elder mentor, I stayed with her in her room. She had a bed in there for me, a single bed, and then her bed was like a few steps away, and we slept in that room. Out in the living area, and it was a log cabin. In the living area, there was a wood stove, and across from the wood stove were 3 bedrooms. In those 3 bedrooms was each one of her sons. So they kind of kept the women, females and males separate. There's a lot of teachings that went on during that time. And then, you guys are travelers. A lot of you travel, here and there and everywhere. And I was blessed to be part of a cultural group that went to New Zealand. And I believe it was 1992. And we traveled North and South Island, exchanging culture with the Maoris and the Samoans. And we got to stay in Rotorua. We got to stay in a marae. We got to sleep in a marae. In all their cooking, there was a hot springs, and all their cooking and everything was done outside. Living quarters was separate from the restroom. Restroom was separate from the kitchen. It was a different place to be, yet they had things like our people had. They told stories at night. When we slept in the marae, they had us sleep girl, boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, right? And the reasoning behind that was so that our spirits would learn how to be respectful to each other. And our only purpose in there was to sleep and also to rest and also to listen to stories. I remember all night long there was an elder in there talking about, different stories from their culture. And when that elder got tired, then another elder took over. So we were treated like their relatives. When we got to Rotorua, they did the traditional greeting, our group and their group, and it was awesome. They had similar, I don't want to say ceremonies, but similar ways of being to my people. And I felt right at home. There was nothing scary there. There was nothing. I think the only place that was different was when we went to see the Prime Minister perform for the Prime Minister, and then driving on the wrong side of the other side of the road, and then seeing all the sheep. Anyway, Anabasi, for listening to me. My brain tends to go to spirit kind of thinking. And there's all kinds of stories I could talk about, but I think that's enough. So Anabasi for listening to me, and it's great to see all of you on this webinar. And hi, beautiful daughter. Thanks.
Thank you, Shirley.
Yes, thank you, Shirley. I remember when you talked about that, having those, thoughts. And when you talked about that not very long ago, it made me be more conscious of the kind of thoughts I harbor in my head. And so I want to thank you for that. It really is true. If I think ill of somebody, it's going to affect not only that relationship, but all my relationships. Are there any, Steve, any questions or anything? Or maybe Sean or Ray or Dr. Foster would like to hop in?
Yeah, I'm seeing just acknowledgments and appreciation in the chat. And but no direct questions. So I would open the floor to our additional panelists or audience participants who have questions or comments.
I've got a couple things that I could say if you'd like. So as I was listening to you speak, I was also kind of hearing some of the similarities that, we share. And, I'm not sure if you guys were mound builders too, but I know that we have mound builder culture in our culture. And so some of these principles that you were stating and some of your practices that you're doing were lining up pretty synonymously with ours. And when Shirley was speaking, she had, mentioned something that I had wrote down in my notes, just listening and thinking about this for my own self. That, the dichotomy of men and women, and having a voice to speak to both of those. And we have this understanding in ours, and we speak about gender not being your defining understanding of what you are. It's something that you are born as, but it's not like saying that you can't do other things, or you can't have preferences or listen to your own heart on what you need to go do for yourself. And we have a term for this, and it's, the only term that I know of that's been spoke about is nu delay, which just means that they do something different. And it's not a judgment to be passed, but it's just stating that, they're doing something different than the general population that you see here. It was never denoted or, specified in any kind of other way. And I like that even in traditional standpoints, when it says something, it doesn't come from a negative connotation. Even our stories about, mythical beings that come over here and feed on us, literally, that want to take our liver or our children's liver and eat it. And, the child dies before they get home, or even consumes a whole being. That we never viewed them as a bad thing. We viewed them as a potential threat or a danger. But understanding them and doing something to circumvent something from happening was kind of like a pretty linear problem solving kind of understanding to the world and some of the things that just inherently come with being a human being. And I really appreciate, hearing your perspective and, traditional means of understanding throughout, your worldview. Because, this is what I was taught as, a member of, Cherokee or, Gadua population. I also identify with Sichangu or Lakota and Kanaka Maoli or Hawaiian ancestry. And so but the most role that I carry out throughout my day is with Gadua practices. And for those I've been able to be, the youngest storyteller in our tribe within 6 generations, and hearing the stories and being able to be a historian to carry on, oral tradition has shaped and molded my life to what it is now. And I don't know who or what I would be without my ancestors providing me with, kind of like a guidebook of understanding of how to treat people or how to even think about situations before I even start working out how to solve them. There's just a massive amount of information that comes from just human behavior in general, and the premise of learning from such a worldview gives you such heavy ground to stand on that it can't help but to influence your interactions with others. And I appreciate your perspective on it, because I have one that's similar in ways and kind of controls and contorts me to look at things in a very specified way. And I see that we have some speakers here that are doing the same. And I hope that these kinds of talks allow our participants or our other speakers here to take from that and build from what they know or what they've learned or who has taught them, and how to progress, our communities or people from here. But I just wanted to, relinquish my appreciation to you for sharing. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to say, and I put in the chat that, as Haudenosaunee people, in our oral history, we actually acknowledge our relationship to the Cherokee people as, fellow Iroquoian speakers. And of course, we in Oklahoma, we live close to a lot of Cherokee people, but long before we went to Oklahoma, we have a dance called a Cherokee dance, which I can't remember the word, but we call it's the word for cousins. Our word for Cherokee people is cousins, basically. So, I just want to acknowledge that there are so many similarities. When I lived in Oklahoma, I pretty regularly I would stomp dance at a Katua grounds, and got to know some people. We probably know some people in common, and but there was always a time when there was storytelling, and I remember one time the speaker brought out, and as he walked counterclockwise around the fire, he had a replica of a wampum, of a belt, and it's similar to our two-row, actually. So lots of similarities.
Thank you, Kiawe, for sharing, and Jim, appreciate your comments. Would turn the floor over to any other of the panelists, or anyone that would like to share thoughts.
I can, Steve. Hey, My name is Teresa Subro. Um, and from my understanding today, we're talking about these healing steps in our creation and what's going on in Star Nation and Covoid and how it's all interconnected and what we can do in our parts of it. And I could hear when a lot of the folks were sharing here today, a lot of you, as I know from voices over my walk, are thinking things like, oh, that's great how you get your name, but where do we go? Or my clients are all wondering what to do. Where do we go? And I know with each people's it's pretty different or can be. With ours, sometimes it was a relative, it depended on the dream or who has the gift for naming, things like that. It is hard to find a person with that name where it's going to resonate with that gift. My advice is to definitely, and you probably heard it, put your tobacco down, your sema down, naknama, kinik, put it down, make your prayers, talk to spirit. Look to your family members, maybe some of those quiet ones you haven't been visiting. and you put a feast on it, you put your focus on it, put your energy into it, and put it out there. It might not come right away. It might be for some people, it takes years. It takes till they're elderly to finally find the person and finally get their name these days. So don't kick yourself, but stay on that journey and keep working on it. It's the best I got at this moment on that one, but it's there. Your name is there. You still have your name. You're born with it, whether you've been given it or not. You are still you. So to know that just because you haven't been told it yet, which, gosh, it's hard, but no, you still have that name. It's in you. And so the healing steps in this time and what we can be doing, whether it's you have covoid anxieties or for your family members or yourself, or you're worried about the prophecies or historic generational, this is just resonating in about 10 ways for you, what's going on out there, then you might want to think about, what do we do? What do we have power of? What do we have control of in our life, in our world, with our loved ones, in our family? And what is this, what some people call sactosake, and to us, that would be to take every day literally, and I know cookie cutter culture says it, but to take every day as if it's sacred. So as if you wake up in the morning, the night before you go to bed, that's your challenge, to put out there that tomorrow, oh my God, I'm going to ceremony, and your ceremony is your life though. So you are waking up and you are getting ready for ceremony. What do you do for, you're going to go to your big to do? You're going to like close out the night before. Oh my gosh, you are figuring out meals. You got car gas up. You are geeked up. Get geeked up for your life, even though you're stuck there or this is what's going on. These things is all you got. If situations that rough for you guys, and it is for a lot of us. And so to think about it that way and to move about it that way, even in the hard times. Yeah, there's nothing to be geeked up about at that moment, but the same thing, it's another ceremony that you're going to that day then. And it's hard, but again, you're preparing for it. What do we do when we prepare for that? We take care of ourselves, a lot of self-care. We make sure each other's taking care of ourselves. If we don't do our full part, we create a disconnect. Wherever that cheat is, we're cheating that connection too. So if you want that spirit life, that spirit connection, you're connecting to something back here that you're keeping hold on to, or you're connecting up here, over here in this broadness. So all the steps that you're taking and your family is taking are those small things. When they say the small things are the huge things, they are the hugest power things. So you guys got it, whether you know and had the teachings given to you or not, you got the hugest power things. So we do the self-care, that self-love. What is that? Giving ourselves that unconditional love, the ability to think clear, have more energy, all those kind of things. Proper rest. We got to parent ourselves. We got to spank ourselves. We got to define what is healthy and what isn't, and we get back to that. When we are doing all of these things, we're putting down our tobacco or whatever it is for you. We're making those prayers, those talking in the morning, and we're coming about at night. We go to bed at night and we put it down, and we put down those thoughts, those prayers, our thanks, our gratitude, even if all we have is small things. Sometimes all you got is the roof, but you don't got heat. You got the roof. Believe me, hours before that roof, you're very thankful for the roof. You count those blessings. We've too many of us know that. So we count those blessings. And we also talk about our needs. We think about our needs and what we can do, and then we got to let it go and get some rest. And we got to get up and do it again. And that's what our old ones did. They persevered this way. And so this is what we do. We make healthy food choices. It changes our whole chemistry. Our brain thinks different, our being thinks different, but the food is medicine. We're putting that spirit in with us. So then to think about that. Think about that Menomin or that wild race manager, those spirits, that plant medicine. Think about those different beings and what their personality is like, and they're coming in you. They're coming in you, and they're going to give you that kind of health that they can bring. And you're going to have to think about and tap in and connect with that and know that, okay, I'm going to carry this forward today in a good way. I'm going to use this good brain energy or physical energy I got from it today, or healthy energy. I feel good. I can wade through today this way. So, and I'm going to continue to carry it how, and when you get down, instead of grabbing something quick that's going to bring you down, you grab water. We say water is sacred. Let's leave these words and hold it up, give thanks, and say, okay, purify me of this. Whatever your words are, we have these tools, and they're so powerful. They are so powerful. We have these tools. So if we don't have ceremony, we don't have a smudge pot, we don't know an elder, we have a glass of water. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but give it about 10 tries, 10 tries. And you'll start to see. We have our breath. And in our ways, as a Anishinaabe, we're with the walking 4 windpipes. So with that breath, their breath is coming in us, our breath is coming out in that pipe. And so we're able to connect and breathe in with those 4 winds, just with our breath, So if you don't have a pipe, or don't have a pipe, carry your trust. Creator give you his breath, and he said he put a bit of himself in all of creation. When he was up in the star nation, when he was creating this creation, and some curious stars come by and say, what are you doing? And they seen the love in his eyes. And he's seen all of the stars that come in to be a part of it. And all of us that decided to be a part of this creation, wherever on the earth we're from, whatever name we call him by, we all decided to be a part of this. And so we all have roles and obligations and duties. And one of those is that we got to care for ourselves and realize he is with us, and to do what we got with what we got. And yes, it stinks not to have those added elements. Stinks is a horrible word. It's a horrible word. But to not have those elders, to not have your name, to not have these things is hard. It is very hard. But you do have this, and you can keep walking forward with all that you have, and take that with you. So our dreams are sacred, and so are our thoughts, in because that is like a daydream. And I wanted to share that. So how are we thinking about everything? Where are our thoughts going? Where again is our focus? What are we connecting to? And if things are taking away our thoughts in a bad way, our families are dysfunctional, or where you're working at, or things like that, our clients are having a hard time with some dark spirits and things like that, how can they take their thoughts back? Where can they place them? What added tools can they use that resonates with them to control those thoughts? Because it is sacred. Our dreams are sacred, and that is your dreams. That becomes your dreams. It becomes your vision. It becomes your life. So that's a powerful thing also. So to how to work on things like that is very important these times. And with the virus and people being isolated, they are trapped in their thoughts. So there's a lot of bad feeding off of them, bad spirits and darkness feeding off of that. So we know that people are struggling with that as well. So how to work on that, and the smudging, the different tools that we can use, recognizing, is this where I'm going or what I'm about? Things like that. And if you got to write it down, logging, things like that, just whatever they need to do, that works for them. I'm sure you guys know a lot of different tools, but that's what I thought I would share. Stretching, exercising, breathing, all of it is important. We learn from our animals around us, our clan families. We would watch them. When we come back home from the camp during the day, anything, anywhere we've been, our old ones would ask, what did you see? Where have you been? What did you hear? What do you know? Things like that. So we would learn from those animals as well. And so not to forget how important things like stretching are. Morning, noon, and night, you're getting stressed out, stretch. You're feeling those dark thoughts, stretch. You're breathing, drink that water, do that smudging, put that tobacco down, and continue to reach out and use the tools we do have. They really are powerful ones. Don't let anybody tell you different. Miigwech, Wiwan.
So I thought I would get on. I don't know if my next job will allow me to do this every other week. But I'm going to be working with kids again, which I'm totally psyched about. Um, I won't be sitting at a desk anymore. I'll be walking around and meeting with students and helping with them with whatever. But I'll be working in a school that's primarily Native and something that's just bringing me, I guess, full circle. Because I was gone since probably '03. I think I moved away. Lived in Alaska since '07, but I would just come home and visit for the holiday or if somebody passed away. But I've been learning a lot of, I guess, grounding myself just because I lost a lot of people and it's different living home. And then this COVID thing kind of made me, I guess, think about how I could process grieving and not doing my going out dancing because I love to dance. And yeah, I love to dance. And that's my way of getting through things is dancing. And so um, I recently found this lady who did this webinar, and we just met with her a couple days ago, my coworker and I, and they were talking about women and how water is sacred, and that in some cultures, um, the women are in charge of the water and the men are in charge of the fire. And that was new to me because that's not how our culture in Alaska is. But it brought it to like you're in the womb and you're surrounded by water, and what you put into your body goes into your baby's body, and all the it just tied it all together. And she said that she would when she's talking with a consumer, she would use an eagle feather and explain the way of life, how it starts at the bottom and goes to the top. And the stem is the way you walk in life, and you stay on that stem, but you can always falter and walk a different path. But you always try to stay on that same walk. And then using the dipping the tip into water because it's healing. Um, and so just a bunch of things that tie you to nature and your body. And it just brought more ideas to my head about how I want to be with my kids because they're native kids. And in this time, it's new. And my coworker and I were talking about earlier today how different times are because back when we grew up, we could walk across the street and be safe. But my son wanted to go play ball, and I had him to take a before and after picture because I'm afraid of my kid missing. Um, but I had to cut the umbilical cord and let him go do that because I didn't want him being secluded on a nice sunny day and my worries to overcome me. And he needs to be not, he needs to train himself to be aware of his surroundings without parental guidance, I guess you can say. So I told him what to look for, what to be aware of. I told him if the energy was bad, that to come home, um, or if he felt uncomfortable, to come home. So just a different way of thinking about life, and good and the bad. Um, and the name thing, my mom told him, I've told him how he got his name before, but it was kind of a okay, mom. And then when my mom tells him how he got his name, it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. And yeah, anyway, his name is Sitsai Uzkus, and it means he tickles my heart. And he's always tickled my heart. He's always made me laugh. I share that laughter with people, and when he's not around, because he doesn't like me telling his stories, um, but it it makes me full of joy when he makes me laugh. So, and then my name, I was gonna be Dawn, Dawn, after my dad, Don Cooney, but my mom and dad wanted a native name for me, and my grandma named me after 3 months because I guess somebody was saying I'd be lost without a name, and so I just thought Sia was Sia. And so later, when I got older, I asked her the story behind my name, and she said it was actually a elderly man's name, but he was well liked by everyone, and I think I've lived up to that because I can make friends wherever I go. I've lived in California and England, and all my coworkers are my friends. I feel bad when they ask for references and they say coworkers, and I'm like, but they're friend too. So how does that work? But all my friends, I've gone dancing with them. And I just have an abundance of people in my life, and so I think I've lived up to that name pretty much. And I hope I get to continue doing these webinars with you guys because it's healing, it's grounding, it gives me ideas for ways to look at life today and to work with my future kids. So, Anabasi, thank you.
Yahweh. Yeah, I just made a big change in my life within the last 6 weeks or so, which unfortunately I'm not able to participate as much as I have been in the past because my new job doesn't allow me to. So I understand what you're saying. It's over the last 11 months or so, these webinars and storytelling sessions have become really important to me. It's so good when I can come on here and see familiar faces and names and hear familiar voices, and many of you I've been able to connect with outside of this particular platform, and even some people that were coworkers of mine before I came where I'm at now, you know. So I hope to be able to continue to participate as much as I'm able. It's become so important to me over the last year or so. And to those of you who I've gotten to know, you can't really know how much of a part you played in, you know, we're talking about connection today and building relationships and how important you've been in that area of my life. So once again, I send you a big, huge thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Jim. Tia, it's good to have you on with us. It's been great to see you be part of these events these last several months. So, Anavasi. Others, open the floor. Got about 25 minutes or so until the top of the hour.
I'll take a turn at sharing some thoughts and words. Good afternoon, everyone. I believe in Alaska it's still morning. Yeah, it is. They're a couple hours behind my time. But Yate, Kahasi, Shikesha, and that's usually how we begin our talks in Navajo, which is Yate is not the same as hello. Yate means everything is well. Everything is well. That's how we introduce that's how we greet each other. Everything is well. Yate. Chike is my relatives, and Tahasi is all who are here with us. And Shitane is my people. So the Yate, Shike, Shitane, Tahasi. And that's our formal greeting. And we're talking about relationships and healthy relationships. Jim, thank you for leading our discussion and our dialogue. But I thought this would be a nice way to begin to share the Navajo perspective on relationships. She in Navajo is that's really taking ownership. My people, my relatives, and everyone else. It's almost the same as me takayase, all my relationships, but being pointed on that this is really our way. And the beginning of Yat is really sets the groundwork for how we view each other and our relationships. Is we're the good, that we're going to be in a good place, that we everything will be good, everything will be well. Yate tole is a phrase that we have. Yate tole means everything is going to be well. And it's interesting. It's always thought it interesting to me that our greeting begins with Yate. Yeah, Yate shikeshitana klasik. And and that klasik includes not only us two-legged people, but also all other aspects of our universe. And that we can envision, and all aspects of the universe that we can't envision, that we don't envision, but we can envision through our imagination, through our minds, and through our hearts. And I'm reminded about this because earlier this week, my family, one of my younger brothers, his daughter came of age, and because she came of age, having her first time into womanhood, because she came of age, my brother, who's a single father with 3 kids, really put into his heart that he wanted his daughter's coming of age blessing ceremony. And he told us, his other siblings, that my daughter's come of age, our daughter has come of age, he said to us. And I was really grateful that he said that to me, because that makes me own his daughter, my daughter, and the relationship that we have with her. And we agreed that the blessing, coming of age blessing that she came time for was really valuable for her and all of us to do. So we hastily made arrangements for the coming of age blessing. Generally, the Navajo way, the coming of age blessing ceremonies are about a 4.5-day process. But once again, because of the experiences we have now with the pandemic and social distancing and just not being able to bring everybody in the way we do with our ceremonies, which is with a lot of relatives and family, we decided to take an approach that's being a lot more common these days. During the time of the pandemic, is we had a 1-day ceremony, blessing for her, and kept it to immediate family. Generally, these things in the formal 4.5-day process, a lot of family come together and they cook and eat and prepare things together. Family members that live far away will travel in, and there's a lot of interaction that goes on. And bring gifts, brings ground corn or corn to be ground. A lot of food is brought in for ceremony. The healer will come and go and make sure things are done. A big cake that's about 4 feet wide and about 5 inches deep will be prepared for. Dig a hole. Then everybody will take part in that cake, sharing of the cake at the end of the ceremony. But once again, because of the pandemic and the real concerns around social distancing and problems related to COVID virus, we didn't do a cake, and we didn't include a lot of the family members that we have, our aunts and uncles and siblings that live further away. We told siblings about it, but said, don't come in. Yeah, we're going to do this in a pared down fashion, the way our healer, our medicine man says we can do. And that's what we did. And this goes back to my statement about how it was available for us to have my daughter, my niece, experience this blessing so that she could get grounded and real basic understanding of the teachings, like what what that means to us. She heard that, and talking to her about some of the key phrases in our language, in our ceremonies, and hearing songs that the singer, the Hatati, came in and offered her and talked to her about. It was really a nice process of grounding and her on the relationships and teaching her of her responsibilities as a woman within the family, as a young daughter and a woman with her dad and her siblings. She's the oldest daughter, so she takes on a lot of those household kind of responsibilities that are hers as a young lady, and those responsibilities prepare her for the future life as a mom and a wife and grandmother. So those are all part of this process in our coming of age ceremony. And songs that are sung, we remind her that she's a blessed human being, that she's a blessed woman, she's a blessed young lady, and she hears from her father continually how much he loves her. She hears from me how much I love her, and all the other aunties that we have, and uncles and her siblings. And that's how we have been. And so our relationships get grounded from respect and love that we have for each other, and how we as a people work on expressing that respect and love through our greeting of Yate. Yate, everything will be well. Everything is going to be good. And in our way, we call ourselves Na sta bakat and na diyin the na. Na sta bakat diyin the na. Which literally kind of translates to earthly beings, earthly sacred beings is what that roughly translates to. We are earthly sacred beings. We are holy people that way too. And those are teachings that were given by our healers and our elders. So I wanted to share these thoughts and a traditional Diné perspective on relationships and relationships teachings that have really helped me during this time and around my songs, my prayers, and my interactions with all of you that I've gotten to know, and more of you that I hope to get to know in the coming days and weeks and months. But yeah, thank you. Appreciate all of you. Ikeha is an appreciative kind of word. I appreciate all of you joining us today and the other sessions we have coming in. We bless ourselves and all of you with the times we have, and the good times we have, and the comradeship that we have with each other today. I want to thank each of you for that. And I'll close with that.
Thank you very much, Ray. Always good to see you.
I'm a little remiss about in my talk. I wasn't sure if there were Navajo people online, and I'm reminded that we do have Diné people here. My clans are Kia'ani, Towering House. My mom's clan is the Towering House clan. And my paternal clan, my father's clan, are Tlazatlana Minigoats people. They're from the Tuba City side, the western side of Navajo land. And my maternal grandfathers are Sitna Chini Blackstreet people. And my paternal grandfathers, my Nullies, are Twitachini Bitterwater people. And that's who I am as a sacred human being, are these four aspects. And we have teachings around the clans as well, and how they originate, and the values and roles that we have in our people. But nonetheless, that's who I am. And my mother's clan is first and foremost, and we claim our lineage through where our mother comes from. My mother comes from a place called Maitoy or Hawk, Arizona, which is southern Navajo. That's where my mom's immediate relatives are, and that's where I go to. That's where my siblings live, and that's where I go to when I'm literally not feeling well or feeling needing some sustenance, as I go to my mom's land and the region around it, and then I go out in the hills and I hike and walk and daydream and sunbathe and enjoy the rocks and the plants and the animals that are around there. And that's where I get my boosts when I'm being challenged, especially these days. That's my mom's land. But that's who I am as a Navajo man. Thank you. Thank you for that.
You mind if I share?
Art?
Anybody hear me?
Yes, Art, we can hear you.
Oh, wonderful. Listen, we just received notification that here in California, well, the town where I'm at, the governor's easing up, and we'll be coming back to work full time beginning March, the first week of March. So I just want to share my appreciation for all of you. You've been I think I'm going to get emotional. I hope not. The light for me in some dark times. So I hope to join now and then. I don't know if time will allow, but I hope it will at some point. But I'm eternally grateful and thank you.
Thank you very much, Art. You've been with us from the beginning of a lot of these events, so thank you, and your presence is appreciated. Take care, brother.
I just wanted to share real quick before we close, and just kind of realized that in these constantly changing times, I talked about making some changes and not being able to connect as much as I'd like. And having built some relationships over the past year or so, listening to Art made me realize that perhaps I haven't allowed myself to grieve some of these changes. And we have in our traditions, and it goes back to all the way back to Peacemaker, when he encountered Hiawatha, who was mourning the death of his daughters who had been killed by Teradaho, and he gave him the condolences, which he understood that Hiawatha couldn't carry on his life and his mission as long as his thoughts were clouded by grief and negativity, and his eyes were clouded by tears, and his ears were not able to hear the good words. So he did what's called the wiping of the tears, the condolences. And to this day, we still do that whenever we have someone pass, or when one of our leaders passes and another one is raised up, condolences are done. And I had always thought of condolences as being ceremony, which they are, but really what they are therapy for processing grief. And when we lose someone, normally we, in times that are normal, we will the community will take care of the family that has lost a loved one. And so I would just say that even though maybe we're not going to be able to connect as much as we have been in the past, that we're still able, if we can keep, that lens clear, we'll always be connected in that way, And so, yeah, it's just, I just realized I haven't really allowed myself to grieve the changes that I've made in the last month or so. And I better stop before I get all mushy and emotional. But before that, I want to say Ganokwa Kanoksko, which means I love you, my relatives. And I've asked Shirley to please give us a closing blessing. Yeah, I'm getting mushy, Shirley. I can't help it. So I'm going to turn it over to you, though.
Okay, I see somebody, I don't know, he's probably my age. His name is Damon Polk. Good to see you, Damon. I remember going to workshops and stuff many, many years ago and listening to you speak, and I learned quite a bit from you. And one of the first men I got to hear speak up, native man. So I appreciate you. And I'm supposed to say a prayer. And I want to know, Damon, could you say a prayer for all of us? Could you unmute yourself and say a prayer for us and what we do?
Shirley, it's good to see you. This is my first time here, and I took a look and I ventured up. Please know that I just got out of sweat just when I came over and logged on, and we have a facility called Red Circle Lodge, and you can go to Red Circle Lodge at www.redcirclelodge.com, and it's an inpatient treatment center targeting Native American adolescents. And we had our lodge today, full house of young people. Started fire at 6 o'clock this morning and watched the sunrise. And when we went between rounds, where I'll talk to the kids and tell them, I said, be mindful, be present, as you look out, from where you're sitting. I want you to know that your elders are out there and they're very proud of where you're sitting right now. We sing this Four Directions song, and we ask them to as they sing, that your grandpa is sitting there watching you. And these stones are brought in, these grandpas are brought in, and it humbles us. You see, we bring in these stones and they become one. And this was a vision. We have young people from all over the United States, and together they sit and they sing, and they give me inspiration, because we live in a society where we feel like our youth have lost their way, but it's not of their fault. And as they pray, they pray and ask for forgiveness for their parents who may be incarcerated, their parents who may have passed away. They pray for their grandparents who are kind of tired of chasing them around, and they all have situations. And it humbles me. So I thank you, Shirley. And I was listening here. I love the dialogue, and I wouldn't have said anything. I just love hearing it, because you only hear that conversation. You only hear that conversation in ceremony or with other elders. with your people all over Indian country. And the conversation still goes on. And so, you know, I wanted to share that a little bit, and you know, it's been a fasting day. There's a lot of people who are hurting right now. And so, in the end of in our fourth round, I said, you know, it feels good to be in here. Thank you for staying. Thank you for allowing yourselves to stay. Thank you for the Spirit, for allowing the spirits to help you and support you to stay. This is a hard place to be. It's a hard place to be, but the sacrifice and the suffering is only for a fraction of your lifetime. And in that fraction of a lifetime, maybe you're going to learn something. You're teaching me something. This is not a one-way street where I give to you. You give me something back, and you allow me to be. You allow me to have energy. You allow me to have energy when I don't have. You allow me to dance and to have fun and to enjoy and to hear and to help you, and you help me. So it's like that. It's like that give and take. We have horses here, and they contribute to what we do. They humble us as well, and they teach us. But I wanted to share that before I share a short prayer here with you. And my name is Damon Polk, and I'm a member of the San Carlos Apache tribe on my father's side. And my father, he taught me a lot, but he also had a lot of trauma in his life. And then we accompanied him on his healing journey. And my mother, I was born and raised on my mother's reservation in Fort Yuma, California. I'm Quetzal on my mom's side. And so that's where I was born and raised, my 5 sisters. My father passed away in 1990 in cancer and passed away. My mother passed away on November the 3rd of this past year. She had remarried, and my stepfather, who was Quetzal, he passed away. It'll be 1 year on February the 13th, which is a week from tomorrow. But as all of you know, people have passed away. So and so you find inspiration in their lives, in their legacy, in their teachings. My stepfather, he taught me Quetzal. He taught me how to sing bird songs, and our bird songs, and I'm gonna share one with you, and then I'll finish the other 3 as I drive home. I live in Cedar City, Utah, and which is about an hour away from where I work. And then I'll sit with some elders, and yeah, I have some elders that are even older than me. Imagine that. And I smile as I say that, because I said that to the kids, because I say, man, there's nobody older than me, you know. And so yeah, we build relationships every day, and I appreciate all the conversation that was held here today. And I appreciate the sponsors of that. Please know that you're doing more than you know. So if you bear with me for just a moment and help me along as we go. We namayo wango wento enaya samawela. We namayo wango naya samawela. We namayo wango naya samawela. Oh, grandfather, once again, we come before you. This one who has walked this road, this red path that you set here for me. You told me to open my eyes. You told me to open my ears and to look and allow my senses to to grasp, to be a part of your creation, that you placed me here because you loved me, because you love me and continue to love me. Help me to recognize the trees that are here that line this path. Help me to understand the obstacles that are in front of me, and they represent so many things in this life. Hona Tukashila, thank you for smiling upon me and bringing this sun out today, grandfather, even on these cold days when our skies are cloudy, grandfather, or overcast. Help me to understand that it's just right for me on this day, that you place these obstacles here, grandfather, that I would be able to recognize my resources and lean on others, grandfather, and allow them to lean on me, grandfather. Today, maybe today's the day that I'm going to get it. Maybe today's the day that I'll understand that I'm in the middle of your love, that you teach me every day. Amasutsa, we are all related. Wana, how you continue to allow me, grandfather, that you take care of my grief. Help me to know, help me to figure it out in the song. Help me to walk this way. Help me to walk in the direction of my prayers. Let me to be reminded that our young people, they look for guidance and direction as well. Help me to be that guide. Help me to be that direction with what I know. Wana, we ask that you bless our food and our water. Let it be the healing medicine that's put together, grandfather, with these hands, these ingredients, grandfather, make me stronger. Help me to breathe for the people. Help me to see for them. Help me to sing for them. Help me to dance for them. Help me to go there. Help me to bring goodness, your goodness. Help me to be patient with myself. Help me to be mindful of myself. Help me to replenish myself. Allow me to sleep. Allow me to rejuvenate. Allow me to breathe and be happy. Una, we thank you for these words. We thank you for the receiving of these words, grandfather. We thank you for guiding us and directing us and putting those songs here so that we can have them. Grandfather, if I leave anything out, forgive me and take care of them for me, because you know what lives in my heart. You know what I have, grandfather. This is me, grandfather. What you see right here is all I have. There's nothing more. And this is yours. Thank you. Lead me, guide me, direct me in all these things. I pray in your name. Amaswitsa. Hope.
Oh, thank you, Anabasi, Damon, for singing and praying and your good words. God's continued blessings for you and your family and your walk on earth and with the young people. Anabasi.
Oh, thank you.
Yo, in Yahweh.
Thank you very much, Dean. This concludes our broadcast for today. We'll meet again on February 19th. The topic will be harmony and restoring balance. So we hope to see you again, same time, 2 weeks from today. I want to thank Jim for leading the discussion and all of the participants and panelists today on the broadcast. Very powerful. So thank you all and appreciate your ongoing support. And we'll see you again in 2 weeks. Until then, stay connected, stay healthy. We'll see you soon.